What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at Data Dash, and today is March 15th of 2018. Well, folks, it's time for a daily update here on the Data Dash channel, and today we have some really important things to talk about. First and foremost, as always, though, we'll be spending some time looking at market valuations, as well as doing some technical analysis on the market leaders. But outside of this, guys, we have a really big topic to focus on, and that was yesterday's sell-off. Many people have been curious about the recent downside action we're seeing in cryptocurrencies and what could have possibly been the catalyst. So I'm going to try to get through all the noise that's out there and really get towards more of a rational viewpoint and talk about what really could be causing this. But also along with that as well, we have some other interesting things to talk about, as well as South Korea cracking down on exchanges, as well as some positive news on the fundamental side. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the daily update. So first and foremost, guys, let's go ahead here and take a look. We can already tell by the look of the front page CoinMarketCap that generally, outside of a few oddballs, most things are down today. We have some serious downside action. Neem down 20%, Powerledger down 18%, and down the list you can see that generally things are in the red. Cardano down 13% as well. So we see a general red trend in the market. Valuations are dropping, and this is probably due to the fact that Bitcoin is going down. So we can see that market valuation is taking a hit as well and continuing the downtrend since mid-February. So what's the general target we're looking for here, guys? Where are we thinking we're going to head? Well, I will tell you all, as we take a look at Bitcoin and talk about the fundamental reasons behind why Bitcoin's going down, I think that we could still see a little bit of lingering FUD in the market that could drag valuations back down to around $300 billion, which is where we roughly bottomed out, depending on what time frame you're viewing it on. If you take it down to the 3-month here, we can get a little bit more details. So we generally stopped around the $300 billion to upper $200 billion range, and I think we could possibly revisit that as a level of support. Along with that as well, I think we're going to continue to see a rise in Bitcoin dominance, guys. Again, the Bitcoin cycle is still going on. We still have to wait. This is where we can start to get a little bit more greedy on altcoins. Again, I've been adding to positions that I've mentioned to you guys on the channel, but as of for now, I think that we're still going to see Bitcoin dominance continue to rise. We were stagnating for a while, but it's starting to curve back up. And as other coins and other top 10 players start to flush out valuation due to increased fear, Bitcoin is going to regain dominance and probably touch anywhere from the 45 to 50% range. My bet, even though it's a little bit more conservative, is that Bitcoin's probably only going to go to around 45% dominance if we get early news of positive developments in the ETF market for cryptocurrencies, being able to build a Bitcoin ETF for stock investors and traders. So again, it depends on that catalyst, but I think we're going to be somewhere in that range. So going ahead here, we can see that Bitcoin has some really bad technical signs here, guys. I got to be fair in this regard. What I was hoping for originally is that we were, back a few weeks ago, going to pass the $12,000 mark, and we were pretty much set to do that until the sell side action came in for MTGOX. Now, again, these are one of those black swan things you can't really predict. It happens, and then once you realize that it's too little, too late. So because of that, obviously, we had a correction, and we looked to see if we could retest and hold the 200-day moving average. Sadly, it appears that the sell side action yesterday was enough to bring down the price below the 200-day. So my general target for this, guys, without doing any crazy TA, is still looking for this to revisit 6,000. It's a very nice level because we already had a stellar bounce here back in the past. It served as previous support back here, as well as previous resistance for about a week back here back in back in October. So because of that, I want to see the price come back down, find support down there. And it might mean that, yes, even in towards the end of March, we might have to wait and see Bitcoin continue to correct. I don't know how fast it'll happen, but we'll have to be patient and wait and see, guys. Again, keep humble in these markets. Understand, though, that we are on the bottom side of things if you're standing where I am, in the sense that I think we're going to get an ETF this year and that Bitcoin is going to make new highs this year. Again, we're on the lower end of things. So I'm definitely going to get more greedy on Bitcoin, possibly add more positions down here around 6,000 to 7,000, but I'm going to wait patiently and see what happens. So let's go ahead here, take a look at some of the other market leaders. Ethereum still going on its course to 6,800,000 Satoshis, touching that red line, the 200-day moving average, as well as that previous support level. So no rush in that regard. We're just going to be patient. XRP BTC, same exact story. I think we're going well below the 200-day. Bitcoin Cash, again, getting resisted below the wedge here, guys. It looks like the trade is completely out of the question here for Bitcoin Cash. We also have as well Litecoin. Many people were mentioning Litecoin in the stream last night. Supposedly Charlie Lee was putting out a very speculative tweet, or he's retweeting an old tweet that Obviously, it sounded like he had some positive news coming. So we might be setting up for a breakout. This is what I've been waiting to see here, guys, as to whether or not Litecoin is going to hold against its resistance point. We got some support on the 50-day, so we'll have to see. Maybe there's a catalyst that can push this up and make it so Litecoin can escape this previous trend of hanging around the 2 million Satoshi range. So we'll have to see about that. But I'm going to remain patient. ADA BTC, let's go ahead here. ADA or Cardano continuing to roll over. The only thing I can see here, guys, is a possible support level, and this is me being long on the position. I already bought a position back up at around 2,700 Satoshis, so nothing crazy up here, but definitely a little bit down on the purchase so far. I could only see Cardano possibly getting support at 2,000 Satoshis. That's a pretty big even number, but if we break through that, guys, the last level of resort is 1,300 Satoshis. There's really no previous technical price history we can work with here outside of that. And I'm okay with that. I'm holding it as a long-term addition, and I'm happy to average down and add more as Cardano corrects. And then when we see the next altcoin cycle, which I think should be coming relatively soon, not too soon though, I think Cardano will do very well. Icon as well. I want to go here and click the Restream link. Let's see real quick. Icon. We can see here that we are, again, holding around generally around the 3,000 Satoshi range, a little bit below it. We've tested both to see if we can find support here, but also contested it as well. What I'm generally seeing here, though, is that, again, much like Cardano, we don't have a lot of price history to work with. Because of that, with the successful launch that Icon had, we're going to have to wait and see if it can find general support around this level at 3,000, because outside of that, there really isn't much price history to work with. And we haven't seen any dramatic change in volume here. So because of that, still staying relatively stagnant around it, guys. We're just going to have to wait and see with it. But outside of that, that's generally what's going on in the market leaders. However, I want to go ahead and focus on what many people are discussing in the sense of the market correction that we've had over the past few hours. A lot of people are curious to see Bitcoin go down 10 to 15% and asking why it's happening. I'm going to tell you guys, first and foremost, the big kind of message that I'm going to kind of propose here in this whole episode of the Daily Update is that it's very important to understand that sometimes there doesn't have to be a reason for price drops, especially in an early market like this, because there are a lot of big players in this market. The whole worry that there's 1,000 people in the Bitcoin community who own more than half of the Bitcoin supply does lead towards an issue of sometimes large sell-offs or large amounts of buy-side action, especially when institutions step in and start buying a lot of Bitcoin. But the same goes for the sell side, guys. And because of that, sometimes you'll always find, and actually not sometimes, you'll always find the media, and this goes for YouTubers like myself. We always try to find reasons as to why something is happening because it gives a visual side of things. But I will be transparent with you. I have no idea exactly what has caused this, but we do have a few different things that could have caused it. I'm going to go ahead and dispel one of the myths that has been perpetrated heavily inside of the crypto media out there, and that is the idea that Google banning crypto ads has stirred fun in the market. So this has been the big idea that because Google, which has gone out of its way to block advertising for cryptocurrency ICOs, marketing firms, all types of different projects out there, they have cut off cryptocurrency advertising. Because of that, people obviously saw in the headlines that this was the reason the market dipped. Well, you can go ahead, you'll find the same thing by a variety of different trusted media sources out there in the crypto space. But really, to be fair with you guys, this is not what caused the full-on dip that we are really seeing in the market. And we have a great article here from Zero Hedge that really explains this. Again, Zero Hedge is a great website, much like anything. I got to take it with a grain of salt. But when you find those gems inside these kind of investigative media platforms like Zero Hedge, you get some really good insight to things. So first and foremost, here's a wonderful graph that speaks for itself here that shows the difference in price action when the news was released. So we have the Google ad ban headline here, where we started to see a slight dip. Yes, it wasn't positive news, and to be fair with you all, I'll share in a fundamental sense. I think for the short term being, this is good for Google because I saw a lot of scammers, a lot of ICOs like Paragon and stupid ICOs that have no actual technology advertising. Not only on my videos, things like BitConnect, for example, were rampantly advertising on my videos and other crypto YouTubers. But you also have people who are getting people and drawing them in into get-rich-quick schemes, into ICOs with celebrity endorsements, all this really big BS that still lingers in the crypto space and kind of tailors to the mindset of the get-rich-quick scheme that not everyone, but a good chunk of people tend to fall for, that are sadly end up losing a lot of money. So because of that and the liabilities associated with it, I think it's good that Google's doing it in the short term and focusing on making sure they can set a regulatory body on it, just like they do with other I would say a lot of other ad agencies and how they're trying to generally improve it. I think that they need to do that with the cryptocurrency space, understand it more, and thereby be able to promote more solidified projects. But the main focus here is that this wasn't the main reason price action dropped over the past few hours. We can obviously see the major amount of selling started to come well after the news. It didn't take 4 hours for the market to realize, oh my God, Google banning, ads for crypto, it's going to be a massive setback. No, it's not really, guys. And because of that, there has to be another catalyst for this. So, or at least in the sense if we're thinking of catalysts. Well, what could it be? Well, again, as we talked about earlier, it could just be large players dumping off volume. Again, guys, that's what leads to major movements in price action. They might not have a reason for it outside of just wanting to lock out of their position, and possibly maybe they see that there's more downside for Bitcoin. But another good catalyst that we could possibly be considering is the idea that this is fears growing into the G20 summit. So for those of you who don't know, the G20 summit is traditionally, it's been a meeting over time where they have high-level officials from central banks, from policymakers, and entire governments coming out and meeting at the G20 summit to discuss financial policies on a global stage, to discuss regulatory bodies around emerging markets and well-established markets. And obviously, as the stock market is doing quite well right now, and everyone thinks it's la la land and it's going to go on forever, and they think that everything else really, as we see the global economy, to be fair, as much as I think we're setting up for a recession relatively soon, is doing quite well right now. Things are much better than they were in 2008. And because of that, there's really only one topic to talk about here as a new emerging multi-billion-dollar market that's set out, if it continues to grow at this pace, to a multi-trillion-dollar market, and that is cryptocurrencies. So many people fear that there's going to be some excessive regulation. And I think this is one of the best quotations to really put it into perspective. For those of you out there who don't know, Bitcoin is, generally speaking, it depends on the fluctuation in its valuation, at the time being of the quote, the 30th largest currency in the world. Think about that. Now, Bitcoin, again, as much as hundreds of billions of dollars sounds like a lot, if we really take some time to look at Bitcoin, it's gone from 140 to the upper $200 billion range. I think we actually got around at its peak. I'll have to pull it up here. I think we got around 300 billion, 327 billion. But because of this is not something that financial regulators can ignore anymore. This is not something that governments or central banks can treat as a little speculative, anarchist, libertarian cryptocurrency. No, this is something that is seeing mass adoption. And people from a wide range of different countries and backgrounds and career focuses are getting into cryptocurrencies. So, many people feel that the growing fears of the G20 summit coming up could be a very serious case for cryptocurrency talks in regards to regulation. Whether that be positive or negative, I think it sparks a little bit of fear on the idea that it might be negative. Could be very positive. We have no idea at this moment. But this is going to be a very important meeting no matter what. In the next week, this is going to happen in Argentina, where we're going to have a lot of central bank officials and government policymakers coming in to discuss this issue. So, guys, I'd like to hear what you all think down below in the comments. I'd love to hear what you all think about in regards to what the G20 is going to bring for crypto. I think it's going to be a big event, and I think it's going to lead probably, in my opinion, I think it's going to actually lead towards some positive news, much like how we feared that the SEC was going to be over regulatory in the sense of cryptocurrencies, but it actually turned out that they're taking more of a positive tone. There's a lot of bankers in the world that hate crypto, but there's also some that believe in Bitcoin and blockchain technology, and it's going to be a toss-up. We're going to see what happens here, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of it no matter what. Along with that as well, there's been some news around the South Korean raid on 3 cryptocurrency exchanges in an embezzlement probe. So many people have been bringing this up to me, thinking that, oh, is this the South Korean flood coming again? Is this where we're going to see massive crackdown on Korean markets? Are they taking a more bearish tone? Well, again, guys, this is something that's been developing for quite some time. Again, ever since back in January, there's been some serious talks in regards to South Korea cracking down on crypto markets that were definitely growing at an out of control rate. But because of this, we can start to see really through the actions what South Korea is standing for in regards to crypto markets. First and foremost, there was a serious issue in regards to what was happening through BitThumb and a lot of other major exchanges. First and foremost, the biggest one, and I wish it was put more towards the top, was the fact that Korean customer services, or custom services, was going out and they found that there was millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that were being laundered through anonymous bank accounts through crypto exchanges. So because of this, there's a serious issue that the South Korean government has to stand up and deal with. I mean, as a government, guys, we have to understand what its role is. And one of the biggest things that governments, as well as banking systems around the world, want to fight against is money laundering. So because of the amount of illegally laundered money coming through the system of cryptocurrency exchanges, it's understandable that this happened, that this has been going on, and that Korean government officials are starting to perpetrate investigating into these exchanges and their practices. Now, outside of this, South Korea, though, has taken a pretty positive note. And in fact, we've had recent news that South Korea is actually looking towards laxing its regulation on ICOs. I think there's a wonderful quotation here that says, the financial authorities have been talking to the country's tax agency, the Justice Ministry, the one that had come out recently and been so bearish, or one of the representatives of the Justice Ministry, and other relevant government offices about a plan to allow ICOs in Korea where certain conditions, or when certain conditions are met. Now, this quotation is more positive than negative. There's obviously going to be regulation and KYC for ICOs, guys. It is a dream world to think that it's going to be otherwise. If companies are raising tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, there is going to be a regulatory body. There is going to be governments getting involved. This is not like Bitcoin, which is a peer-to-peer digital cash. These are companies or entities that are raising millions upon millions of dollars of average everyday retail investors' money, as well as institutions. And because of that, governments want to know where the money is. They want to have KYC standards implemented. Because of that, that is a very good quote to realize, because it shows that they are now setting up to officially accept ICOs in South Korea in the coming months, but they're waiting to establish the regulatory body. So they're progressing towards it. And this is good news for South Korean investors, but also the global span of investors and participants in the cryptocurrency community. So again, positive news here, guys. I don't really get caught up in the FUD. I look for the fundamentals here. Just because the South Korean government is raiding certain exchanges does not make me take a bearish tone. So along with that as well, another thing that people have been talking about as a potential fund marking for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies was the congressional hearing on cryptocurrencies and ICOs. Well, it turns out that this has been, rather than more of a FUD case that many of the headlines have been trying to generate, they've been nitpicking certain quotations from congressional representatives. For the most part, it's actually pretty optimistic, and they had a lot of great people come up and speak at the congressional hearing. So I recommend you guys go listen to it for yourself. I know it's 2 hours. I guess you might not have the time for it, but if you're driving or if you're working somewhere and you need to, plug in something to listen to, really recommend you check out this congressional hearing. Really interesting stuff. For the most part, positive news rather than negative, from what I can tell from the few, I listened to a good about hour of it. So you should definitely go out and check into it, guys. Listen to it and see what you think for yourself. But on some positive fundamental news, I just wanted to go out and mention that SegWit is riding towards all-time highs in the sense of adoption here. Again, we've gone very far from where we were back in August and September, and now stepping well into March of 2018, we're again riding up, looking to maybe retest new highs of SegWit adoption. So I'm very bullish on this chart, folks. It's fantastic, but it's so awesome to see SegWit adoption continuing to rise up, guys. Again, SegWit's been working so far. It's worked fantastically, and it's been dropping fees at a rapid rate as we see exchanges go in an outright competition to start testing with SegWit and start implementing it to lower fees and convenience for consumers. And again, speaking of the numbers here in the sense of being more convenient and user-friendly, look at the transaction fees on the Bitcoin network, guys. Median transactions are sitting around 40 cents. I can do, for example, on my SegWit activated wallet, I can actually send transactions on the Bitcoin network for anywhere around 12 to 13 cents. It's extremely low, guys. And even if you take a look at the average transaction fee, it's still very, very low here for Bitcoin. So fantastic stuff. It's good to see that fees are still remaining low, even though we understand that transaction demand is a little bit lower than where it was back during December. Nonetheless, it is still very good to see that lower transaction demand in SegWit has kept fees low, and that we could possibly see Bitcoin being used as peer-to-peer digital currency for a much longer period until we have to have talks about increasing the block size or using layer 2 solutions. So good news for Bitcoin. Good things fundamentally going on in crypto, guys. Again, there's a lot of FUD spearing in the market, but again, try to ignore the kind of fun in the market, guys. There's always going to be headlines explaining why the price is dropping, why there's sell-off in the market. I don't think it has to do with Google banning advertisements, and I don't think that'll be permanent either. But I'd like to hear what you guys think down in the comments down below so we can get a discussion going in the Data Dash community. But until then, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Stay tuned.